Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We've got a fun 11-game slate in the NBA to end this work week. In this one, we are taking a look at the Memphis Grizzlies playing host to the Phoenix Suns with a bunch of late scratches, a bunch of guys that are listed as doubtful for the Grizzlies tonight. So we'll take a look at some of the best bets in this one as a result. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out those other couple of videos we have up for you today. And head to thelines.com as well so you can check out the odds checker we have up there for you. Make sure you're getting the best juice available on all those bets you make tonight. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or a DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Grizz open at +5 with a couple of guys questionable, but looks like they're not going to show their hand here. They're going to play, just rest everybody who has a malady here. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams, Desmond Bane, and even Tyus Jones, who's been filling in for Ja Morant, are all listed as doubtful. Ja, of course, is still out with that knee issue. So the spread has only risen from +5 to +7.5 so far, but you think it'll keep going up when people see how many guys are out. Yeah. Total has dropped a little bit to 228.5. Quickly looking at the other 10 games here, Toronto's -10 at Orlando, Dallas is -8 at Washington, Pacers +15 at the Celtics, the Clippers are +8.5 at the Bucks. Both those teams went to overtime on Thursday. The Kings -2 at the Rockets, Pistons -4 at the Thunder, Blazers are +15 at the Spurs. The other game we break down is Wolves +4.5 at Nuggets with a 236 total there. And then the Pelicans are +2 at the Lakers, who lost last night but are expected to get LeBron and AD back out there at the same time to face New Orleans. Look, Memphis, maybe the deepest team in the league, but we'll see how they can hold up now with 5 key cogs likely to be sitting altogether. I'm still not willing to doubt this team. I mean, I still think that a lineup that DeAnthony Melton, Dillon Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Brandon Clark, and Xavier Tillman is tough to deal with. And you got Zaire Williams off the bench. Remember what John Conchar did the last time he was thrust into action? He hit like 6 of 9 from 3. Memphis is a scary team to bet against. I mean, they are the most profitable team against the spread this season. And every time they're underdogs, they seem to come through. 8 of their last 10, they have covered. 6-2 against the spread when they're home dogs this season. We know what they've been doing without Ja. It's been incredible. I mean, the 100 defensive rating, I think in some ways is a product of who they faced, especially lately, to be able to hold those offenses in check. I don't think they're holding the Suns offense in check at all. Because nobody is. So I actually, because of this news, because Jaren Jackson Jr., a leading defensive player of the year candidate, Steven Adams, the immovable object down low, are both out. I actually like the over even more. I see that it's dropped a little because maybe odds makers feel they can't score as much without Bane. Tyus Jones isn't necessarily more of a weapon than DeAnthony Melton, who's shooting 58% from 3 and has a 134 offensive rating over his last 5 games. Brandon Clark and Melton both have just insane efficiency numbers, and they play like 15 to 20 minutes because the Grizzlies are so deep. Right. I mean, you just give those guys their per 36 numbers, and you'd think they're going to keep it going here. Kyle Anderson is a very versatile kind of point forward. I mean, Melton doesn't even he can play off the ball with Anderson running point, and Dillon Brooks, we know what he does in big games. He is a big reason for the Grizzlies being so profitable when they're underdogs. They've scored 120 in 7 of their last 8 games here, total at 228. You're talking about a Suns team, that's also flirting with a 120 over their 9-game winning streak here. So I would take the over first and foremost. I'm also liking the over in the other game we're talking about, Wolves at Nuggets. If you want to tease the two together and get them both down 4 points, that sounds good to me. I would consider teasing Memphis up to +11 and saying that they're still just going to find a way to hang around. But I think probably the smarter bet would be to get the Suns down to -3 because they win. They just don't really cover in this weird 5 to 8 range, as we just saw with the Warriors. They failed to cover by 1 point, but they kept it rolling, kept winning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a really interesting sort of turn of events for anybody who really wanted to watch this game through the lens of maybe these teams will match up in the Western Conference Finals. Not too likely that we're going to get any sort of information to help us if that series comes to fruition later in this in the postseason. So I think it's probably spot on what you said in terms of Memphis doesn't want to show their hand, and it's not like we have a ton of stats for when a guy like Desmond, when you've got Desmond Bane and Triple J and Tyus Jones and Steven Adams all out. You're talking about the second 4 best players and most important players in their team. It's just interesting because this comes at a time when DeAnthony Melton, who's always been someone that they've been waiting to break out, and he's been in trade talks as the number 1 piece that they might make available, either him or Dylan Brooks for the last couple seasons. And sort of kudos to their management in the offseason. They didn't make any changes. They believed in the core, and it's definitely working out. And it's probably going to continue working out in this situation where they still have formidable NBA stars. I mean, after you talk about 5 of your top 5 guys essentially being out in a game for most teams in the NBA, you're talking about at least 1 or 2 G Leaguers, playing and potentially even starting, depending on which team you're talking about at that point. And we've got 5 formidable starters here, guys who not only can they just come in and slot in and play well because they're, and seasoned NBA professionals at this point, even if they've only been around for 3 or 4 years, some of them, they're already getting minutes, and they've already been playing in sort of a next man up situation with a bunch of guys that there's probably a very small margin in terms of how much better a guy. I don't want to poo-poo Desmond Bane. That guy has been a glorified top 10 shooting guard in the league this season for sure, making a big rise. But still outside of him, Dylan Brooks has been getting those minutes. DeAnthony Melton has been playing 23 minutes a game in his last 5. You mentioned the 58% from 3. That's on 9 attempts in 23 minutes. So it's not like he's only going in and shooting the ball 4 or 5 times in his 23 minutes and sort of reaping the reward of a good 3-point percentage as the result of not taking volume shots. There can't be more than 10 to 15 guys in the league who are taking more than 9 3-point attempts over their last 5 games. So he's got to be way, way up there in terms of the volume and the efficiencies, which is wild to see. And it definitely was helped out by that big win that they had earlier a few games ago, right when they lost Ja, and they were able to handle the Nets there and win that game by 12. DeAnthony Melton, as we know, went off in that game, and that was a huge part of it. So lastly, Xavier Tillman, Brandon Clark, both of these guys would be getting plenty of minutes, would be in the top 7 of almost any rotation that you throw out there this season, except for maybe the Suns, who are probably the only team in the league that are deeper than the Grizzlies, as we saw when they lost Chris Paul and still managed to win 7-2 in March, etc. So I think Phoenix still wins this game, but man, honestly, I would want it definitely below 5 points. I'd want it closer to what you said, 2.5, if I was going to feel better about taking the Suns here. But full transparency, we're recording this much earlier on a really, really late Thursday night. So by the time this video goes out in the morning, I think you could see this spread already at 11 points and not even need to tease it, or perhaps tease it even further and take that other game that we talk about, which we like the over regardless in that Denver Minnesota game, which is still a nice game to add to a tease if we like it that much, just to get those Grizzlies up even further to 14 points or so.
Yeah, don't take the cheese here. You think the Suns are just going to walk over this team and cover. You could wind up losing that bet very handily here. But, I mean, there are a lot of numbers to suggest that there's going to be good offense here. I'm just going back to that and saying that that's how Memphis is gonna probably stay in this game, by shooting well. And I mean, that's how they're going to have to stay in this game, because Jaren Jackson Jr., you just look at a guy who has a 103 defensive rating, averages 2.5 blocks per game at home, and changes so much more. Steven Adams, 106 defensive rating at home. The Grizzlies already score more at home with a better defensive rating, but take those 2 guys out, and it's going to be a lot more back and forth. And then the Suns, I mean, the numbers on the road, not any dip, since the start of February, a 121 offensive rating on the road, 121 points per game. Same thing at home, basically. Yeah, I mean they're allowing 113 and a half on the road in March, though, too, and allowing opponents to shoot 36% from three. Memphis with Brooks and Melton attempting a ton of threes. I mean, that is where they're going to come out. And I mentioned Conchar, also kind of a sniper off the bench. Who knows who else they'll unearth here? And, if they do go to that G League, well, I mean, they're going to have to for a few reserve minutes with this many guys out. But yeah, I just think the over is where I would go here. Again, yeah, Phoenix, they're coming off a relatively low scoring game against the Warriors. That pace is going to be completely different in this game. Memphis, when they get into clutch time, plays at an insane pace at home. A lot of that is job, but they're not going to change the way they play completely. And that is the same system. And if we hadn't mentioned at home in March, with those guys helping the offense, but 127 points per game, a 125 offensive rating. I don't think this is all just going to evaporate because they are missing a couple of key offensive players. I think they have other guys who will slot in there and keep the efficiency up.
Definitely. And the 3-pointers that you're talking about, in their last 5 games for these Memphis Grizzlies, which just eyeing that because Phoenix has shown a bit of a letdown in terms of the 3-point attempts and from their opponent, like you said, allowing 36%. That's up for sure about 3 percentage points from what they normally allow on the season at about 33%. And then you talk about who's going to be shooting the ball for Memphis. In their last 5 games, they're already averaging the 9th most 3-point attempts of any team in the league. And then you look at who's shooting those attempts for them in those last 5 games outside of Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. The rest of the guys shooting the most attempts from 3. DeAnthony Melton's by far and away the most at 9 attempts. But then you've got Zaire Williams, John Conchar, and Kyle Anderson all playing, 21, 15, and 20 something minutes. Zaire Williams actually only 18 minutes for those 3 guys. And they're all getting, the bulk of the 3-point attempts for the entire game for this team. So once you extrapolate that out into these guys getting 30 to 40 minutes, some of them at this point, now you're talking about a bunch more threes, and maybe that percentage drops a bit because they've been super efficient as well. But you still got the volume there, and so like this leads to points for sure. To end that point there for you, I love this situation as sort of a take the underdog, the spirited underdog at home. Bunch of guys who just play Memphis grit and grind, and I think that'll be the case tonight. But it's going to be a lot more threes and a lot more shooting as well. So it'll be pretty fun. There's going to be a lot of energy in the building, and I'm definitely going to be watching this one tonight. So that is all the time we have for you guys. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Check out those other couple of videos we have for you on this big slate for Friday night. And until we see you next, happy betting.